Welcome to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. Hi everyone, I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money gamer extraordinaire. Today we're talking about end-of-the-year income tax planning for 2014 with authors and income tax experts Mike Kilbourn and Rob Odell. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Yeah, thanks.
Mike.
Thank you.
Well, this is the end of the year. It's the end game. Hey, I'm a consumer. We're consumers. Let's put our consumer hat on. I don't want to pay any more taxes than I have to. I'm looking at all the options. It's kind of like this is kind of learning about how to tax plan. It sounds like learning how to play chess to me.
I can hear my clients right now saying, help, help.
They are, and I think most of America, and you know, and you, I've heard you guys talk before, and you were telling me, I thought Middle America was exempt from some of these things like the
Not at all.
Obamacare tax, everything. I thought that was for the higher end people.
That's a huge myth. There's so many moving parts, especially after the American Tax Relief Act of 2012 that went into effect in 2013. There are more moving parts now that an individual or a family really needs to carefully plan their taxes before December 31st.
Yeah, procrastination is a big mistake in this area.
Well, I have to say most CPAs, and I have a CPA, that person is very good about taxes, but they don't tell me proactively what to do in advance to lower my bill.
They tend to look backwards. You give them your W-2s, 1099s, and out comes a 1040.
They're excellent at that. They're
Yes.
excellent at that. But they're not thinking in proactive. Now, we have a lot of end-of-the-year tax. Now, I've noticed there's deductions, there's exemptions, there's tax credits. Anyone that you like more than the other?
Well, if you get a tax credit,
credits.
yeah. That's absolutely the case.
Tax credits are a direct subtraction from your basic estate, your basic tax.
Your income tax, correct.
Now, I've noticed because of all the things that we've had, I mean, ever since the Bush era sunset, you know, the tax laws actually went into sunset, I noticed now there's multiple brackets now. I mean, there's
7.
There's 7 now, and we're looking at this. I'm trying to figure out where do we land here? I mean, look at these numbers. The first, you know, when you look at the first 10, 15%, so I'm looking at 72,000. Now, is that 72,005 AGI, adjusted gross income?
This is taxable income right here.
Taxable
income. So adjusted gross income is on your top or your front page, bottom right, 1040. It's different than this. So you could have someone who has $250,000 of adjusted gross income, but by the time they go through itemized deductions and exemptions, they might be somewhere in the 146 range. And so there's a lot of moving parts when you look at. The net investment tax of 3.8 is on adjusted gross income. The tax rates are on taxable income.
So I could, after I take my mortgage interest, I'm taking my property taxes, I'm taking the exemptions of my family, depending upon if I'm phased out or not. Because there's some people that cannot take this. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so by the time I do all this and I look at my tax bracket,
correct.
I've heard this phrase before, and I went to the internet, and everybody, all of my consumer traffic I get, I was always telling me the same thing. Steve, I can't figure out marginal tax bracket, progressive tax bracket, average tax bracket, effective tax bracket. Well, how do I make heads and some sense out of this kind of thing, which seems to be so convoluted?
Well, there's so many parts that affect the actual bottom line that you can't just look at a table and say, well, I fit between those two brackets, so I'm fine. I'm at 25% or 28%.
Now, it's amazing that some of our most affluent Americans are paying 39.6%, but Mike, I've heard you say they're paying a lot more than that.
They're paying more than that. They're paying 43.4, which I'll get to in a moment.
Okay. Well, when we're looking at this, we're trying to stay. If I want to do some tax planning to see if I can start shaving and getting myself into a lower bracket, I mean, that's kind of the end game.
Exactly.
Now, I've heard you say this. This sounds so counter in my show, having a consumer show like this. I've heard you say, Steve, paying zero taxes is not good, and I keep thinking, well, I thought that was the end game.
No, it is not good because you're losing opportunities in the 10 and 15% brackets here. Opportunities such as if you have a low basis stock, you could sell it if you're in the 10 and 15% tax bracket and pay zero capital gains tax. You have opportunities to do Roth conversions in here. So a zero tax return doesn't say, I don't see it as a good thing. I see that as an opportunity for a person and their advisors to plan what their income tax return should look like.
Okay, so when I hand out over my CPA, he knows my exemptions, my tax deductions, and as you say, good as gold tax credits.
Correct.
I have all this done. I've noticed that so many people are getting ready to file for 2014. This is the first full year we're having Obamacare in, and everybody's sitting there celebrating that they're going to get their premiums subsidized by the United States government. And oh my gosh, the last one I looked at was in shock. He says, how come I'm not getting the credit?
Well, it's the difference between modified adjusted gross income and adjusted gross income.
Yeah, go ahead. So modified adjusted gross income adds back a few items that actually to your AGI, and so now we're looking at a different number, a larger number.
The larger the number, the lower the subsidy.
Correct.
And I think some people are going to look at that. I mean, I saw the premiums now in certain states have already gone. I mean, they have to file this in advance. We saw those premiums actually going up. And now on top of that insult, I'm going to have this issue of I may have to actually not get subsidies. Can I afford this?
Right. It's a tax on the middle class. That's exactly what it is. So some things that clients might want to consider, or people might want to consider, is something that Mike and I call tax diversification and tax arbitrage. And if we takeaways from this is for individuals who have taxable investments that are tax inefficient, covered call strategies, taxable interest, portfolio turnover, they might want to put that into a deferred account where the tax is deferred until distribution. Tax efficient assets like index funds, municipal bonds, life insurance, cash value, and immediate annuities have that in their taxable accounts.
And what makes that efficient? What makes something like that hit your category and you call it and label it tax efficient?
Because on a year in, year out basis, what these type of investments are doing are not shooting off too much tax consequence. There's not a lot of portfolio turnover in an index fund. Muni bonds, it's tax exempt interest.
If a life insurance policy, you can take withdrawals and loans to basis. Basically, you won't pay any tax on those.
We come back from the break. We're going to talk more about all these end of the year things you think of. Here, that was a new one for maybe a lot of our audience. Tax diversification. I need tax deductible, tax deferred, tax free. We need to have an assortment besides our investments. We'll be right back after the break. It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And keeping more of your money is even harder these days with high taxes, fund expenses, and fees for financial advice. And when you consider the uncertainty of the market and the rising cost of living, the purchasing power of your dollar is constantly at risk. But a tax-deferred annuity with an inflation rider can be the most cost-effective way to generate increasing annual income without market volatility. For more information on how annuities may work for you, just email me at steve@thenameofthegame.tv and ask for our free annuity information. Well, welcome back to our second segment. Of course, we're with Rob Odell and Mike Kilbourn, and we're talking about end-of-the-year tax bracket ideas. I mean, I'm trying to get my bracket down, tax ideas to lower my bracket. Walk me through some of these things that you're talking about, because I really need tax relief as a middle class. I always thought it was an affluent issue, Mike, because you play with very high-end clients, but this sounds like it's attacking the entire middle class.
Absolutely it is. And so one of the things we do with our clients and that people should consider doing with their advisors is tax diversification. Just as you have diversified investment portfolios, you need to be thinking about in terms of the type of assets you place into the various types of accounts. What you might put in a Roth IRA or an IRA might be different than what you do in a taxable account for tax planning reasons to bring down that tax bill.
Now, and you're matching that up. So you're already doing diversification in investments. Got that.
Yep.
But now you're talking about certain investments should go in, maybe as you suggested, a Roth IRA versus a what? Taxable IRA?
Or a taxable account.
Or a taxable account.
Correct.
So there's strategies here, Mike.
Well, you have to look forward. That's what people aren't doing, is taking the time to meet with their advisors and look forward as to what's going to happen during the coming year. Most of them do like they're doing this year, is waiting till the year end comes and looking back and saying, what do I do now?
There's a bit of forecasting here, isn't there?
There is. And so what we're trying to say is keep your eyes open, because there's some taxes in there that you haven't thought about.
Okay, so let's say I'm open to your idea, which may be very new to our consumers today. We're tax diversification.
Correct.
I know tax deferred is not tax free. Tax deferred is not tax exempt.
Correct.
Tax deferred is I'm just delaying the taxes.
Yes, correct.
Now, is there power in deferral?
Absolutely there is, especially at the younger age. There's huge power in it. The issue is that sometimes it's like sugar when you're putting it away, because you can put money in there, get the tax deduction, and let it defer. But when you come, someone's somewhere sometime is going to pay tax on that, whether it's...
Well, let me stop you there, because what if, I'm wondering if the middle class, and I've heard you call this the average bracket. After I paid my deductions, I get my tax credits, my exemptions, I've done all that. My average tax bracket, and I'm looking, I'm saying, wow, I gave $1,000 in my 401k, and I'm only in the 20% average bracket there, and was the $200 worth tying it up?
Right. Right.
Till I'm 59 and a half. I'm asking you, what do you think?
It depends on how much they have in the balance between qualified, deferred assets, and non-deferred assets, taxable assets.
Okay, now when we talk about qualified, we're talking about like a 401k
IRA
versus a non-qualified, which would be what? Give me an example of that.
A taxable account, a life insurance cash value.
An annuity?
An annuity that's non-qualified.
Okay.
Correct.
So I need to be diversified not only in my structure of my investments, but you're heavily suggesting, I hear, tax diversification. And that's going to give me some flexibility when I need it the most when it comes to retirement planning.
Correct.
I mean, that's going to be a huge issue.
One of the great myths, if you get in retirement, you're going to be in a lower bracket. That's not the case always. In fact, sometimes you're paying more taxes on an average basis than you are during your lifetime and your earnings.
And I'm all over that. And I'd love to see us do some kind of workshop for consumers on that someday. What about charitable gifts? Because, when I'm looking at charitable gifts, I've never seen more people, more benevolent. America is the most giving nation in the world, without a doubt. And the middle class, you think it's all the tight money that we have in our wallets are so tight right now, but we are one of the most giving classes of people in the world. But I've seen you do things that I thought were relegated to Mike's area, which is the high affluent clients, and do something that can help middle class.
Absolutely. Charitable giving is the last area where you get an income tax deduction and not subject to alternative minimum tax, and it's good for everybody. And so for those who are charitably inclined, there's all sorts of opportunities, both on the high and the low brackets, to take advantage of.
And the assumption is by many people that if you give to charity, well, you're taking away from your lifestyle, et cetera, right now. But that actually, we could actually show you ways that you can give to charity and still actually do better for yourself and better for your kids and family. And that's an area we're going to get to.
And even for middle class Americans.
Correct.
Even for middle class Americans.
Mike, I'm going to stay with you for a second. This harvesting of tax, I had some good ones this year. I had some great winners on my funds. I had some losers, I have to say. So this tax harvesting, what does that do for me?
Well, it reduces your capital gains tax. Depending on what you're trying to do. If you're in a lower bracket, you might be accelerating some income because you want to take advantage of the long-term capital gain rate. And if you're in the 15% bracket, that's zero, not a bad rate to have. But for lower income brackets, you might want to take advantage of it. If you're doing...
Well, I have a question though. How many CPAs or people that are doing their taxes actually understand the harvesting issue? Because the last 4 1040s I looked at, they seemed to divorce themselves from the advisor who had the investment side.
Well, that's the greatest disconnect in wealth management, where the financial planner and investment advisor is not communicating with the CPA or tax professional prior to December 31st.
So how big is that for my consumers watching this show? They need to have somebody quarterbacking this issue.
Absolutely. They should make sure that their financial advisor and their CPA are talking and meeting to discuss their tax return.
And before December 31st. In fact, this time of year, really, October, November is when you want to be doing it. December, you're running out of time. And so if you're going to do tax loss harvesting or realizing gain, the time to have the plan is in the summer and execute in the fourth quarter. Right now, 2014 is almost done. We're actually looking at 2015 and 16 tax projections for our clients.
We should, are you suggesting though, this should be an annual issue that we should be looking at this, and you're saying not December, we should be looking at this just before the summer's out.
Sure, call it tax planning and have a show on tax planning for the consumer.
You need to be thinking 3-4 years ahead, not just 2014.
Back to that forecasting idea.
Forecasting ahead, absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I want to thank Mike and Rob for being on our show, our special guests, and today's money mentors. And before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor or your legal counsel. And as the good Reverend John Wesley once said, make all you can, save all you can, give all you can. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you next week.